Valentine on today's News Talk, TNT.
And welcome back to the program today, Monday, the 16th of September, 2024. Final overdrive section, and we're going across the pond from where I am in Europe anyway, to North America. Politics, the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. He didn't get very far. He didn't get a shot off, unlike the last guy. And of course, it's the economy, stupid, always the number one issue in any American election. And to discuss these issues, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Rebecca Walser, founder and CEO of Walser Wealth Management, who has her global MBA from the London School of Economics. She's a wealth strategist and tax attorney, amongst other things. Rebecca, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Basil. Thank you. It's good to be here.
First of all, what's the spin over on your side of the pond on the latest Trump assassination attempt? Alex Jones is busy over on X talking to Glenn Beck about how he thinks Ryan Routh is obviously an intel agency cutout. And another perspective from Jimmy Dore, which I must admit I wholly agree with, is that one way or another, this guy has been brainwashed by corporate media, by establishment narratives into thinking that the war in Ukraine is an existential battle between good and evil, and that the only way that he could fight on the side of good was to assassinate Donald Trump because he wants to bring an end to the killing. Now, that's really very twisted logic, but that's where we are. That's how badly people's minds are warped by the constant barrage from the likes of CNN, CBS, MSNBC, and all the rest of it, and their very simplistic analysis of world events.
Yeah, and if you look, Basil, at what happened after the first assassination attempt, there was no repercussions other than hearings once again in Congress with the Secret Service. So there's no actual repercussions that anyone feels. And so, you know, a congressional hearing literally has probably the least amount of teeth, even though I wish it did. I wish that Congress's oversight actually had a meaningful impact, but it just doesn't. And therefore, these people are emboldened. And you had Hakeem Jeffries, which is, a minority leader of the House, basically saying on Sunday that, Donald Trump must be stopped. So when you have these politicians that are on the left, on the progressive side, that are very explicit. Now, I'm not saying that anyone's outright calling to, attempt to assassinate him, but when you have the left being so direct after an assassination attempt, this is the strangest, craziest election cycle that we have had as well in American politics since the 70s. This is insane. And now it just goes to show you, I literally said 6 months ago, they cannot afford to have Donald Trump reelected as president of the United States. And there's a lot of international groups, United Nations among them, that cannot afford another Trump presidency. So you have the weight of the world pressing against this candidacy for a November 5th election that's just less than 50 days away now.
Yeah, you make some very good points. Of course, it was the best part of 2 weeks, or was it 3 weeks, before the wholly unqualified head of the Secret Service resigned after the last attempt. This time they're claiming it was really something of a success. Agents on the golf course ahead of Donald Trump were sweeping the holes he was about to play, and they literally saw a rifle barrel sticking out from shrubs. And Ralph then ran off and got in his car and drove off before he was apprehended. But he seems, I would say completely unhinged. But in his interview on Newsweek a couple of years ago, he was very clear that he thought all of us, that includes you and me, need to go to Ukraine to put on flak jackets and fight the Russians on the front line. But if you listen to the corporate media, then you can understand why somebody would think that, because it's sort of absolutely relentless, the propaganda. And Donald Trump, quite rightly, wants to bring an end to the war. It's a very, very strange world that we're in, where calling for peace now gets, assassins' rifles pointing at you.
Well, the media has so much responsibility here, Basil. I will just tell you a little inside scoop. I don't know if you've heard it or not over on the other side of the pond this morning or not, but I will tell you that mainstream media initially reported this as gang violence. Enter, two people shooting at each other in Donald Trump's vicinity. So it was only because we had an internal Fox News, Sean Hannity, in fact, was invited to go golfing with Donald Trump, declined that invitation, but had an inside line to people that were there golfing that day, who then reported, no, this was an actual second assassination attempt. Wow. So you have mainstream media not even doing their due diligence because they didn't want to put this back out there as another attempt. At the same time that you have the West pushing Ukraine to fire, missiles long range into Russia, which Russia has already said, Putin has already clearly announced to NATO that would be considered an escalation, direct escalation against NATO against Russia, and will be retaliated against. So the media is absolutely derelict in their professional responsibilities. They are carrying the water for the progressive left, and it is causing and creating additional problems for people that expect that they're getting truth and reporting, and they're not.
You make some very good points. We do our best here on TNT, which is why we invite people like your good self onto the airwaves, because we feel the public are fully entitled to be in full possession of the facts. But
that's right.
There's a montage doing the rounds on social media, which we played earlier in the program, but I want to play it again because it really much deserves a second airing. If we can play clip 3 again, studio, this is as I say, a collection of Democrats and politicians and talking heads, all of them calling for violence of one sort or another to be enacted, both against the former president and, well, in some cases, just generally as well. So let's roll clip 3, please, studio.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
This way. That's it right there, pulling up.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
The two that stand out for me are Don Lemon, who's lost his job, of course, saying that the biggest terror threat in America is white men radicalized to the right, when in fact, of course, if he's not an intel agency patsy, Ryan Routh was radicalized to the left. And somebody else, there was Cuomo, I think, saying, who said that protests have to be peaceful. Well, compare and contrast BLM with the events of January the 6th, Rebecca.
I mean, it's disgusting. And I can't understand how we can have a montage of that all throughout the 4 years of Trump's presidency. But then on January the 6th, when police, we have it on video, police opening the gates and people following in. And then, of course, all kinds of crowds saw other crowds going in and also went in. And those people are, we still have people in the United States of America, in a constitutional republic, sitting in jail 4 years later since January 6th, still no trial. This is a banana republic. It is unacceptable. It is un-American. It is unconstitutional. And these people have blood on their hands because of the fact that they can say this for 4 years, but then have a January 6th situation and can be completely different. Now these people are terrible. Now, forget about the BLM protests, forget about the billions of dollars of damage across our country in the summer of 2020. We just need to talk about the January 6th rioters who were let in by the Capitol Police and how they were trying to subvert democracy. And let me just explain something. This is the people's house. The House of Representatives in the United States of America is the people's house. The people have every right to be in their house watching their representatives elect the next president of the United States. So the fact that it's closed off to the people, the fact that Washington, D.C. is now guarded with gates against its own citizens, that alone is also suspect and wrong. This is not a communist dictatorship. This is a republic.
You make some very good points. I would say it's a fascist dictatorship these days. We've had the lawyer representing some of the January 6 defendants on this program, and amongst those jailed is a 76-year-old grandma whose sole crime was to walk through a door that had been opened for her by a police officer. Think of that,
exactly.
Exactly. Come in, grandma. By the way, you're going to jail. It really is absolutely disgraceful beyond belief. I find it, ultimately really rather depressing, but surely they've now shown their hand and the American people aren't going to fall for it all once again with Kamala Harris, are they, Rebecca?
Well, I believe in my fellow American, and I would hope that they would be able, the ones that are interested, that are not stuck in their TikTok and their social media apps and don't really pay attention at all to the real world of what's going on. I hope those people see the truth. But the truth is, Basil, we are, the election process is corrupted. It is not a legitimate election. It wasn't an illegitimate election. These last two elections, statistically speaking, I can say that factually with the actual numbers and the data. I don't care who says the election was not tampered with. They are wrong. When we have statistical anomalies and P and T scores that do not even compute with the number of voters that are registered in an actual state, then we know that there is fraud. There was fraud in 2020. There was fraud in 2022. And so anyone that expects that we have a free and fair election in 2024 without changes to these voting machines is just unrealistic.
Delusional.
And delusional. And we have to figure out how we're going to get through this election cycle. I can tell you that we are still expecting a lot of escalation before November 5th, because we know that the powers of the world do not want to see the re-election of Donald Trump.
Indeed, Jeffrey Tucker of the Brownstone Institute says he's been told by Washington insiders that under no circumstances will Donald Trump be allowed back in the White House, and that supposedly in a democracy. Now, Trump would do himself a big favor if he focused on the economy, because if he wins by a landslide, it's going to be very difficult for them to fix it. A 55-45 vote or something, if that's what the polls are showing going into November the 5th, will be difficult to rig. And it could bring about, if they try, could bring about the civil war that some people have predicted. But parking that up on one side for the moment, the economy stupid, that was written on the blackboard at Bill Clinton's campaign HQ in 1992, and it got him over the line. The economy was much better under Trump than it has been under Biden. So surely he should be focusing on that, Rebecca.
I mean, absolutely. What we have right now is really gaslighting by all administrative agencies, including the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is the second most revisions we've ever had to the employment data since 2008-2009 global financial crisis. So we know that the data has been obfuscated, has been manipulated to the upside to show, and that is why we had 818,000 jobs retracted from fiscal 23 just last month. And you can see that we constantly have these big numbers that come in that Wall Street looks at. I know because I've been on live TV when they've come in. Wall Street looks positive. It looks like a great number. And then we get a massive revision the very next month and no one even notices. It never even gets, it never even gets talked about in the actual Wall Street news. So
yeah, absolutely. You make some very good points. But can Donald Trump ram these points home? I'm very disappointed to see he's reluctant to engage in a second debate. He claims he won the first one. The polls say otherwise. He might get a bit of a bounce out of this next assassination attempt. But if he does, he's got to press home the advantage, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people felt like he left a lot of points on the table at last week's debate and really felt like he could have called a lot to task, a lot more than he did. Recognize for him that it is very difficult, as an older white male debating a younger woman of color. That is a very difficult position for him to be in, that he has to really navigate very carefully. But I think he went, he got baited. He fell into her baiting trap, unfortunately, which, obviously, gets him to show us his little short temper that he has. And so that was disappointing because that did make him not stick to the points that he could have made. The American people are suffering. The inflation is high. The opportunities are less. And so, yeah, he should have absolutely. And I would love to see another debate so she could explain to the American people how she's going to pay for $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers and a $6,000 child tax credit and a $50,000 first-time business tax deduction. How is she going to pay for all this with almost $36 trillion of federal debt that's publicly recognized? The tax burden alone is just astronomical. So she needs to be held accountable for a lot more of her platitudes that she gave us last week, but that won't happen if we don't get another debate.
Remember, we're turning the page, Rebecca. Turn the page. That's the latest catchphrase.
Don't go backwards.
Rebecca, thank you so